Hey everybody, got another gear video. Today I received the 35mm Rokinon SP lens that was just released. Had it pre-ordered from B&H and it came in today. I want to talk a little bit more about the entire line now that I've had some time to shoot with it for a while. The first two lenses were the 14 and the 85. The 50 came out around July last summer. And then the 35 just came out today, technically. So it's starting to become a usable line. 24 and 35 were kind of the big ones missing, and now it's just a 24 and I guess like a 135 on the long end, and then there'll be a full kit. But it's a pretty usable kit now if you're okay skipping 24. These are good lenses. They're my new go-to primes. I no longer have any other prime lenses. Back in the day, I had some Canon primes, and I went to the Rokinon Cine DS primes. Had some Sigma primes. I've since largely moved over to zoom lenses. I've got the Sigma 24-70 Art. That's kind of my all-around zoom. I've been using the Sigma 24-35 for a really long time. I really like that lens. I'll probably get rid of it now that I have this 35mm prime. And then I recently got those Tokina Cinema ATX zooms, which is just being filmed on one of them, on the 16-28. So I kind of am favoring zooms for a lot of stuff. But like having primes for those occasions where you need a really fast lens, and that's where these SPs really come in handy, because all but the wide are f1.2. So 35, the 50, and the 85 are all f1.2. It's really fast. The 14mm is f2.4. Still pretty fast. Not as fast as the Sigma Art 1.8 that they have now, but it's a lot more expensive. So, but anyway, over the last few months, I've shot a lot with these three, and I'm going to kind of let my images speak for themselves. I've shot some test footage with a 35 today, and I shot some comparisons between all of these and my other lenses. I'm going to just put all that together in a big fancy montage and let everybody judge by themselves. The only real thing to note, I'm a big fan of them. I like them a lot. I'm going to keep them and use them for a while. The big thing is that they're kind of in a no man's land of like who they're intended for. They have electronic aperture, but they're manual focus. So there's no autofocus, so it's not really great for still photographers. There's no manual aperture, so it's not good for cinematographers. Though it does have a long focus pull, or longer than average for a stills lens. Which is good for cinematography, but it doesn't have gears, which is bad for cinematography. So it's kind of like this weird tug between different sides of the equation. It doesn't seem to really be perfect for either side of it, but I'm okay with that, and I've put in feature requests to Red to add these lenses to their profile. That's the only thing that bugs me with my Red camera, is that it doesn't automatically detect the lens, so I have to kind of scroll through the aperture to get it right with an electronic aperture. But those things aside, they're well built. The only physical thing I don't really like about them is these lens caps come off so easily. Like I probably ought to just get some different ones, like some of those rubber ones or whatever that kind of go over the lens, just because they're constantly falling off in my lens bag, especially if they're put in upside down. I keep pulling out my lenses and like the caps are all over the place. So the lens cap design is not my favorite. Also, I have hold on. They have a pretty big diameter. They have a, what's this on here? Is it 86mm? Yeah. So the lens diameter is 86mm. It's kind of an odd size and a big one. I got the circular polarizer, this Tiffin polarizer, which fits nicely on the three mid-range lenses. The only problem is, maybe this is specific to this polarizer, the lens hood won't go on over it. And I don't think you can't really get your fingers in if you put the lens hood on first to kind of put it through and then do it. Again, that might be maybe that's the fault of the polarizer, but I've never had that problem on any lens before. It's just sort of an odd thing I ran into. But aside from those things, these are very well made Rokinon lenses. These feel sturdier. I mean, it's still plastic, but they feel sturdier than the Cine DS lenses. They're heavier, they're bigger. They just kind of have some presence to them. They're serious lenses. But most of all, they look great and they're fast. So if you followed my channel, my most common thing about lenses is that they're very subjective. And in my journey through a bunch of different brands and lenses over the years, without really having a favorite per se, every lens kind of has its different purpose. So the Tokinas, got one right here. So I recently bought these two Tokina Cinema ATX zooms, which are great giant cinema manual lenses with manual gears for zoom, focus, and aperture. And they kind of cover almost the entire range. These are great for when you're doing more studio work or movie work. They look great. In my side-by-side test that I'll put up later, they're very similar image quality to the Sigmas. They're almost indistinguishable. But of course, being zooms, they're slower. They're T3, which is like a f2.8. So in those situations where I need to go faster than that, that's what these primes come in for. And I'm a big fan of the 35 millimeter focal length. So I have a feeling I'm going to use this guy a lot. But anyway, most people look on YouTube at these videos. They're trying to find the best one, the best lens, because everybody's shopping for their gear. They're just now starting out in video. They're looking for references. They're wondering if they should spend that extra couple $100 on this brand over this brand. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. The lenses aren't going to be what make or break your video, especially if you're in the sub $5,000 bracket, I guess, or even the sub $2,000 bracket. I say 5,000 because now that a lot of the standard photo lenses have been adapted by companies like Sigma or Rokinon to cinema lenses like the Zines or the Sigma Cines. Even these Tokina zooms are based on their still lenses that have been rehoused. That's kind of that can jack up the prices of some of these still lenses have been adapted to cine lenses. They're still kind of sub $5,000 cine lenses. Until you get up into like the Schneider Cinezeners or the Leica Simulux or Simulacron lenses, or the Tokina Cinema Vista lenses, which I had the privilege of using the 18 millimeter one, which is like a $7,500 lens. We rented that for our short film. So I've used some of the higher end cinema lenses occasionally, and they definitely have a different look and feel, and they're just they just resolve everything a little nicer, a little better color, a little more pop to it, a little sharper, a little more contrast. And those things can add up to a visual difference, more so than comparing like these to like the Sigma Arts or something. These still have a little bit of the green color cast that all Rokinon lenses seem to have. I think it's a little more subtle with these. But if you're in the market for these, what you're really looking for, super sharp lenses that are very fast, and they're very fast, wide open, and they look great. But really, it's the f1.2 that's going to make you want to buy these. They're about the same price range as the Sigma primes. So that would be, the Rokinon Cine DSs are cheaper. That's really what's benefiting them. They look great. We shot the majority of our movie, Clowns and Robbers, on the Cine DS lenses. Looks great. There's nothing wrong with how it looks. So if money is the main concern, those are a great option. The Sigmas tend to have a very sort of neutral kind of clean standard look to them. That's just kind of my subjective opinion. Is they're just very base level. They're very reliable. They're very clean. They're very color neutral. Very just kind of what everything should look like. These have a little more personality. The f1.2 obviously makes things really soft. You know, the tint's the green tint, you know, is a little different. They just have more of a distinguishable look to them, in my opinion. These Tokina things are pretty clean. They're pretty similar to the Sigmas. You know, it's all but unless you're like pixel peeping, or unless you spend a lot of time around lenses, it's really stuff that you're just noticing for you. Nobody's going to notice. Even the green tint, you know, people just think that's what that image looks like naturally, because they're not there to compare it. It's only when you compare these things to each other that you see these things. But anyway, this is all just to say I'm a big fan of these lenses. For those of you that have been following and are thinking about them, I know some people have wanted to see the 35, maybe been holding out for that. It kind of hadn't been a fully usable line until now. So you've been on the fence and you just want to see some sample images. Cue the montage of various images from the last few months, as well as some stuff from today with the 35. And note, some of these some of these shots are from unreleased projects, just to tease a little bit. So yeah, that was a lot of footage, a lot of tests, a lot of comparisons, a lot of just random shots. I think that's the best way to judge stuff. It's all shot with an 8K red helium camera. For what that's worth, I think the sensor, I think that ultimately impacts the way those images look a lot more than these do, even though that they kind of go together. You know, you can put these lenses on a lesser camera, it's gonna have a very different look. It is what it is. But that's what my stuff looks like with these for reference, for whoever this might be helpful for. If you have any more questions, just leave a comment. I'm pretty good at responding to comments. If you enjoyed this, please like the video or share it or subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.